They move it up over the line. A long pass by Mikhailov didn't work. Cleared in front of the net on the boards. And Philadelphia, two-man break again. A breakaway. Leafs going ready to goal. Goal! Beautiful goal by the Leafs. Terrific.
Pretty good job of interference run, too, by Gary Dornhofer, but Rick McLeish is an excellent shooter. Not too often, Dennis, you'll see the Soviets get caught like this. Here it comes. Watch the interference on the part of the one Flyer right there as he moves over at the line. Here's McLeish. Perfect spot.
Everybody, it's Isaiah. Just reminding you that FlyersNittyGritty.com and the O&B Puckcast are brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. Hey, do you have damage to your home? Not sure who to call? We suggest that you call Summit Public Adjusters before your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be very stressful. Let Summit take the stress out of the claims process. From storm damage to your roof, to toilet overflows, to broken pipes and fires, Summit gets you the most money for your repairs. So next time Mother Nature leaves you in need of repairs, call Summit Public Adjusters at 215-752-0560 or visit summitpublicadjusters.com. Licensed in PA and New Jersey.
And we are back. It is Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast, brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com. Yes, we are back. The studios now are in a permanent location, and we wanted to get a show out for you before the draft lottery next week for the Philadelphia Flyers, which could mark an important moment for the team, or perhaps could add another player along the lines of what they added last year, which is still would be good news. But if it's anything like 2017, I'd feel a heck of a lot better. With that being said, let's bring in my partner. Oh, I should mention that the great Dan Silver cannot make it tonight. He has work obligations. He's in the horse racing business, and he's getting ready for the Derby this weekend. So we look forward to having him on in future shows. But as always, to my left, Chef B, how are you, man?
Very good. Enjoying these hockey playoffs. I know that's a little further down in the speaking engagement tonight that we're going to discuss, but I'm really enjoying it, loving everything, and can't wait for the draft to come up where I am confident the Flyers get either one or two. I'm going with that positivity that we started 2 weeks ago, and or 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. I'm sticking with it.
Well, I sure hope so. I got like a 13% and change chance of getting one or two, 80% chance of getting the seventh or eighth after that. And you do the math, the rest of it. But before we bring on our esteemed guests, just wanted to remind people that the O&B Puckcast can be found on multiple podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon, Audible, Google. We have our YouTube page, just plug in there, O&B Puckcast. We have a Facebook page, and we do appreciate you following us on Twitter at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. Our backup plan is Getter at O&B Puckcast, at O&B Puckcast. You can follow us there. And if you could subscribe or follow, give us a rating on one of the prominent platforms like Apple in particular or Spotify, we really do appreciate it, because if you subscribe, it moves us up the charts when people are looking for Philadelphia Flyer podcasts, and it really helps us out, and it made a big difference this past season. So this is the first episode of season 7, I think it'd be fair to say, and that would mean that our next guest is going to be the first guest of the new season. He's from Hockey Writers Inc. and Steel Flyers, and you know him as Lance Green. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me on. That's quite an honor being a first guest of season 7 there.
Fantastic. So we have some items on the agenda. Just quick, not necessarily breaking news. It came out yesterday that it was announced by the Russian Federation that the coach of CSKA of the KHL announced that Ivan Fedotov has fulfilled his military duty and that he'll be going back to play for that club, but he will not be coming to the Flyers. So we're not really sure exactly how that's all going to add up in a wartime scenario, but at least as it was pointed out by the website, he is out of his military obligation, and he's probably wasn't treated real well under the circumstances that he left. And Lance, any comments about how that whole Fedotov thing went down for you?
Yeah, at that time I wrote an article on it and all, and covered it. It was just a scary situation. I mean, he came out of practice and he was basically abducted by the military, thrown in the back of a van, and taken to what we know as like MEPS and given a series of shots. He was thrown on a submarine, a 6'7", 6'8" goaltender, thrown on a submarine and sent to Siberia, I think, is the last I've heard of it. And, it's a little scary considering, what could happen to guys. And I was really disappointed. The Flyers at the time, they were scrambling, of course. They thought he would be the backup goaltender to Carter Hart, possibly coming over after such a great season in Russia the previous year. And I think they dropped the ball. They did have Yaniv Prez from Quinnipiac University in the development camp and let him walk without giving him a contract. I think they should have gave him a contract and had him here, and he only went on to win a national championship this year and signed with the Hurricanes after that. So I think we could have got a good goaltender there. And we dropped the ball there to kind of replace Fedotov. So,
Okay, it's an interesting observation there. That's something I know we talked about when I was on with you guys on Hockey Writers Inc. So that's a strong observation. I think right now there's two things that are on the fans' minds when it comes to Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, Monday coming up, it's going to be May 8th. It's the draft lottery. We talked about the odds for the Flyers to get that first or second pick, which really puts them in a certain tier of player. I think everyone agrees that Connor Bedard is all by himself. And then you have a group of players, perhaps, depending on who you listen to. You have Adam Fantilli, you have Leo Carlson, Matvei Mishkov, with Russia, a little bit of a cloud there, and then a bunch of players, some of which were at the under 18 or World. We're going to get some discussion about that. But first and foremost right now, been up in the air for a while, and the events are changing even as we speak in terms of the Flyers. President of Hockey Ops. Let me put some stuff out there. And, Chef, I'm going to get you to weigh in first because there's a couple things that are going on with this. You're hearing names of candidates for this position. Now, if you're thinking it's going to be like Toronto, or it's going to be with Montreal, what they just did with Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, where it's basically Gorton's vision and Kent Hughes gets, and as the GM gets involved, kind of implementing the vision of the two of them put together, with Gorton being the superior to Kent Hughes. Or in this case, I guess Brendan Shanahan being the superior to Kyle Dubas, if I understand that circumstance, in Toronto. The Flyers are doing something apparently different. From what I understand, Dan Hilferty, the replacement for Dave Scott as the CEO of Comcast Spectacor on the hockey side of things, is going to have 3 people reporting to him. And Lance, Chef, if I get this wrong, please let me know, because it gets a little confusing, and I think it speaks to what the problem might be. Is it Val Camillo, who's more on the marketing side of the business side of the team. And then you're going to have Danny Briere, presumably being a general manager, which we have questions about. And then we have someone who's going to be the president of Hockey Ops, who's going to be like a spokesperson, who's going to do presumably a better job of communicating to the fans what the vision is for the team to the fans, and also someone who gets acts as a liaison or an interface between the business side and the hockey ops side. This is someone who will consult with Danny Briere, but it seems like Danny Briere, as a general manager with no real experience other than a brief tenure as assistant GM chef, sounds like he's being handed the keys to the kingdom, regardless of who is hired for this president of hockey ops. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot to digest there, isn't it? And hence that might, like you said, that might be the problem. There might be too much. I think there are, in chef terms, you're overcooking the stew here. Too many ingredients or whatever. I think, I want to say this though. Even if it's overdoing it or overthinking it, it's still a lot better response than we got from the previous administration on this team. So I want to go with that. I want to say that I'm very excited about Hilferty. I think because if you got somebody that's like a truly a hockey / big Flyers fan, I think that'll reap benefits, because I think our knock on the previous guys that have held this position in the past, the last maybe 2 GMs or presidents or whatever you want to say, they, at least it sounds like that if Dan's going to make a move or Danny Briere is going to make a move, or whoever the GM or the president of hockey ops is going, if it sounds like they're making moves, at least it sounds like they're going to swing for the fences kind of moves. I don't care about everybody's praising Danny Briere about this. They signed Zamula. Thank you. And that's a great first move. I'm like, that's nothing yet. This isn't nothing. I'm not impressed with that yet. I want to see, I want those tough decisions. I want to see if you're talking about addition by subtraction, like Torts was saying. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of balls this crew has, pardon my French, to carve out for the rest of this team. If you're going to make a steak and butcher down a steak, you're going to cut away the fat, and you might, there's some hard decisions in there. There's going to be some of these decisions that they make that are not going to be popular, So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Now with the position itself, I'm going to hold a waiting pattern, because I'm going to go with the fact that anything is better than the non-movement we got in Fletcher this last year. It was basically a non-movement. It was like, it wasn't there. You couldn't even get a freaking 6th-round pick for JVR to go on salary that you didn't have to worry about anymore. So that, for me, that's the frustrating part. So I'm looking forward to action, any kind of action, and I'm willing to have a little bit of flexibility. I'm willing to see, okay, if Danny Briere is going to make mistakes as a GM, and whoever the president of ops is going to be, hopefully, I'm pulling for Doug Wilson, but either way, I don't care who it is. And if Val's can continue to market like she did last year, I think it was a huge improvement for this team, to turn around the image of this team, because it is a PR mess. If they can just do what what has already been started, I think I'll be happy. I'm not expecting this team to be better by leaps and bounds, but I expect them to take chances. I want them to go out there. I want somebody to tell me and show me, not tell me, show me that you're going to try to make a better team out of this. And if it's okay, I think Flyers fans are very intelligent. I think they will put up with a rebuild if you're not jerking their chain around. I think they're smart enough to go, okay, you're right. We have to do this. It's not the right time. If Carter Hart has to go because he doesn't fit the timeline, then he's got to go. Okay, I'm sorry. But that's the kind of decisions I want to see being made. I don't want people to forget just to sit there and not do it because it's easy. I want them to do decisions because they're hard, and it's the best for the team overall in 3 years.
Okay, I got you.
Right.
I got you a
That
lot
was
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, the Zamula move is just, it's something anyone with training wheels on as a GM could, is going to pull something like that. It's a matter of course, but I hear what Chef is saying. But the thing is, Lance, I want to go to you, but I just want to get the latest. This is from Anthony DeMarco of the fourth period, a little bit from Anthony Sanfilippo. I want to give attribution. It sounds like Eddie Olchuk who was with the Pittsburgh Penguins front office, Cammy Granato, who was an assistant GM in Vancouver, Scott Mellenby, a favorite of the scouts. And of course, Dave Brown was good friends with Mellenby way, way back many years ago. I think the Flyer connection thing is tenuous at best there. And Doug Wilson was mentioned by Chef there. Doug Wilson had a health problem and he overcame it. I mean, obviously, to me, Lance, Doug Wilson clearly, far and away, is the best candidate here. The question becomes, is the Flyers process that we talked about and how they're going to share this equal responsibility and basically equal rank to Dan Hilferty, but not necessarily have a real hockey position with this president of hockey ops, is that going to appeal to more mainstream candidates like Doug Wilson, like Scott Mellenby? And is that a good thing? And whose idea was this? Maybe you want to tackle some of that.
Sure. There's a lot to it. So I wrote an article recently, actually like this week, where it said making a case for why Briere should be the Flyers' next president of hockey operations and not the GM. And the basis behind that is I don't want to promote the guy because, like you said, he is not even adequate to be a GM in my mind. He's taking steps, but if the team is going to do what they said and now look to a president of hockey operations as more of a guy that's going to be in the community and promote the team that way and shake hands and kiss babies and be a guy that's going to be the voice more so and a liaison between Valerie and Dan Hilferty and the GM themselves. You got to think that Danny Briere might be a better candidate for that position because it's not the traditional, president of hockey operations that some of these other candidates may be better suited for, like we said, and had more experience behind. Danny Briere is very, very well in touch with Val. Val actually gave him the idea after he retired to go back to school. He went to Wharton, the best financial school and everything like that for this purposes. Very prestigious school. And he took, all kinds of courses, in being a GM, but more so in negotiations. They also said that the team is going to want the president of hockey operations to be able to help in negotiations, more so player contracts. And I think Danny Briere did a pretty good job with Zamula. Zamula was a restricted free agent. Obviously, that's an easy re-sign, right? But he didn't overpay him. He signed him back for under $800,000. Okay, so it's not a Chuck Fletcher move that would have paid him twice his salary that he had last season, right?
No 8-year deal for
right,
$4 million?
Yeah, and give him a no trade clause to go along with it, right? So basically, the only training or experience that Danny Briere has had is been given by Valerie and Comcast to Danny, right? He was a GM, appointed a GM of the ECHL Maine Mariners, a team that was owned by Comcast. Okay, he was that for a little bit, and then they made up a position for him at the Flyers, and gave him a special assistant to the GM title and all this. If it's me, I don't want him to be the Flyers' next general manager. I don't think he has enough experience yet. I would be more comfortable with him either being an assistant general manager to somebody, or this new thinking way of the president of hockey operations. So I think he is more of a fan favorite. He's a face of the franchise. He's well liked. He can communicate with Valerie. He's known her for years, and he would be a good liaison between that and a more experienced general manager. Now, that's just my 2 cents, but it's tough. It's really tough to be the next Flyers general manager. If you think of it, they don't have a franchise, face of the franchise guy here, right? They don't have any stars.
It's Tortorella right now.
Right, it's Tortorella right now, right?
Yeah.
So you think in Edmonton, when Ken Holland came into Edmonton, he already had Connor McDavid there and he had Leon Draisaitl there. That was a starting point, right? He may not have had, draft picks. He may not have had a wealth of, cap space, but he had 2 stars to start it out. The Flyers don't have that. They don't have draft pick compensation. They don't have a wealth of draft picks because Chuck Fletcher traded them all away for, second-rate defensemen, right? He doesn't have that ability that Barry Trotz is going to have when he's taking over the Nashville Predators this year, right? Nashville has 13 draft selections in this draft that Dan Poley it acquired and is now leaving Barry Trotz to be able to start and make of his franchise his own, right? Or he doesn't have cap space. The Flyers don't have cap space. They were cap penalized, the second highest of any team this year, and they're going to be so right off the bat. They're going to have 1.8 million and change taken off their cap ability to spend next year because
you mean the penalty for the bonuses?
Right. Penalty for the bonuses because there's so many players that hit their bonuses in amount of games played or, plus minus for Noah Cates, and they got extra money. And I think Cam York got one as well, which totaled it over the cap. So now they have a cap penalty that they got to work on.
Well,
they already don't have
you.
enough cap space there.
Let me interject. This kind of goes to what Chef is talking about in terms of he wants to see Danny do something that shows that he's willing to take a risk and swing big. But
Sure.
it's, Chef, I'm going to go to you. It appears right now that Danny Briere, whether we like it or not, is going to be the general manager. Because I agree with Lance. I mean, this is something I've expressed in the past. But Danny Briere is going to have to do a lot of what Ron Hextall actually did very well. There's one of the few things that he did well as general manager is get rid of some of these contracts and find a way to be innovative and doing a lot of things in the spirit that you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, let me first say when he was talking about Zamula, it's not even. Did you think about my point being, like, I'll touch on this very briefly and then I'll continue. Did anybody here think that Mamula was worth anything more than that by the way he played this past season? No, I don't think he was worth more than what he was offered. This is to show me or prove me. Yeah, might have. Yeah, but this is good. So I'm not going to applaud a guy for giving a contract that is, just whatever. That's what he should have been given because he didn't play. Now, I don't really. If you look at the people who got the bonuses, because guess what? 1.8 million is not gonna. You got a lot of salary coming off with JVR and a couple other play. Basically, you're a defenseman. Like I love Justin Braun. I loved him when he was a Shark. I thought he was a great player early on. I think he brought a lot to the table for the young kids here. It seemed like he might not have played better in the last 2 years, but the guys he was paired with, they kind of got a little bit better with him. But I don't care. I don't care about these bonuses that they're giving because, like Isaiah said, it's Cates, it's York. Who else got something? It was Justin Braun because whatever, but he's retiring, so I don't care. So if I'm 1.8 million over the cap because my young kids actually did better than expectations, then that's a positive for me. So I don't care about the overpaying. What I care about this point on. For whoever's going to take over, like Isaiah said, you're going to have to make some moves here to be cap savvy, like we haven't seen since the Hextall area. And I'll give him credit for that. When he was here, he was good at that. So, and there's a lot of moves to be made to get out of cap hell. But do I think it's impossible? No, I don't think it's impossible. Do I think you're going to eat something? Yeah, you will. But here and there, like I said, make those tough decisions. You're going to piss off some fans. I know you're going to piss off. And a lot of us armchair GMs sitting in our Barker loungers at home with like a 6-pack of beer on ice right on the floor, they're going, oh, I can't believe they did that. Well, guess what? You know what? There's a lot of people over the years that, we bitched and said that this should have been done. So stuff should be done now. And there's no excuse. You can't let it play out. You never know. You don't know what the future is going to hold. And I think it's too early to start talking about anything really until you find out what pick you have. Because who you get is going to dictate what you're going to do. Because, you might take a different route if you get Bedard or Fantilli. that's going to change your timeline significantly. And you can't tell me it won't, because it will, because you're going to have one of two of the best players coming up on your team. And then hopefully in the next 10 years, he's going to be a star for foreseeable future. So it's going to affect your team. So until you find out what that piece of the puzzle is, this GM, he can make these little moves as $775,000 signings. I don't care about that. That's not that. The real business starts after that cup is raised and part of my friends, stuff gets real. I won't say the bad word, but stuff gets real.
Okay. So Lance, let me get back to you, because I think at the heart of this is who came up, whose brainchild was this arrangement? Is this something that Hilferty came up with? Was this something that the top brass, that someone unknown, or was this Val Camillo in a kind of like a power play, like you're saying, the way she kind of like fostered the ascendancy of Danny Briere through the organization, going to Wharton and getting that management position experience at Maine, and just kind of grooming him in this way, but not really giving him the requisite experience to jump in and like I said earlier, get the keys to the kingdom and make all these hockey decisions. I guess depending on who they pick as this hockey ops person. I mean, I was talking earlier with somebody else they were talking about, I think it was Anthony DeMarco, that has a feeling that somewhere in there that Cammy Granato is going to be part of the team. It's not necessarily definite, but he just has a feeling that Cammy Granato is going to be in there and like, okay, she's an assistant GM. She's done everything in hockey. If there's a female who's qualified, she's certainly Cammy Granato. I don't know what her accomplishments are in terms in that position, but again, like, and then it's the female or male influence. To me, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is what are your accomplishments? What have you done? And why is this a better idea?
Yeah, I don't know whose direction, but it seems like Val's got a lot of power. And I think Dan Halferty is going to be leaning on her a little bit because she's been here, right? She's been in the organization. I think those two are pretty good from prior jobs and such. So they have a work experience anyway. So I think he's going to be leaning on her. But this was definitely her brainchild to bring Danny along and groom him, like you said. So I don't know. I like I said, I don't want to trust him with all the big major decisions because, like Chef said, before you do anything, you got to make some major decisions. Now, he mentioned JVR and stuff like that. They already spent that money. They've already handed out big contracts that start to Travis Sanheim now and paid him big time bucks when they probably shouldn't have. They went out and gave Coots a big contract now that was backed. So I don't think that they're going to have the cap space that everybody is hoping that they're going to have here. So in that sense, I really don't know if Danny's going to have the wherewithal to make some of these big deals happen and get rid of a Provorov, get rid of a Carter Hart, get rid of a Kevin Hayes. Because you got to think he was trained by Chuck Fletcher and Brent Flair. And why Brent Flair did not go with Chuck Fletcher, I don't know. But it all seems to be a little backwards to me. They hired a new coach. Now they're bringing in Danny Briere as a general manager. In my mind, it should go downhill, right? You need a new president of hockey ops. He needs to hire the GM that he thinks he's going to be able to come in and run that franchise the way he wants to. And then he should be hiring a coach that has a similar vision here. So not that I don't like Tortorella. I think he's a great coach for the situation, but it should have been done a long time before. And the stones should have fallen a little bit different way than I see. In my mind, I think, like I said, to end this thought was, I think Danny Briere should be an assistant GM, or he should be named the president of hockey ops with this new vision of, not being the same old president of hockey ops. And I think they should bring in somebody like an Eric Tolsky from the Carolina Hurricanes. I really like that guy. I think he's innovative in the way of how he handles money. Carolina does not pay anybody any money. They let him walk, and he simply goes out and finds players to plug and play where others walk and got big contracts. And that is just what the Flyers need. They don't have the cap space. They don't have the pull-in ability right now to gain a huge name free agent, right? So they need to plug and play some of these type B free agents like he does for year in and year out. He's able to get guys back that are type B free agents when everybody else is out there going after the Johnny Gaudreaus and focusing on that. He went out and signed 2 or 3 or 4 different guys that are type B free agents, and now they're right back in the mix of it and you know, right back in the playoffs all over again. So somebody like that is used to this, not having a bunch of money to spend. They're used to finding diamond in the rough players that are, you know, not top end talent. He's used to picking from later in the draft and still finding gems. And he has a ton of experience, and he's an actual genius. He has degrees from, you know, all these huge schools, and he just got bored in nanotechnology. He just got bored doing that, so he decided to pick up hockey.
They're not going to hire him, though. It's crystal clear. The point stipulated. They're probably passing up the opportunity to do something that would be better. I would rather have
instead the Pittsburgh Penguins are all after him.
Well, there are rumors to that effect. There's no doubt about it. But certainly I agree especially in the organizational structure. I don't know why the Flyers are choosing, after 10 years of ineptitude, going nowhere, to all of a sudden make a paradigm shift with something that's unproven. And it's something that the fans have a right to question. And Chef, let me go to you. You got comments?
Yeah. Okay. So let me say this. In the last, so we kind of agree, at least 10 years now, the Flyers haven't been really relevant. What they've been doing hasn't been working. So I'll just say this: if they change up who they hire and how they hire, I'm sure we've all been a part of corporations and worked it where nobody consulted us to hire our own boss. You know what I mean? So nobody.
Yeah, we haven't. Excuse us tonight. We all have our own little notifications and things going off tonight.
That's my diabetes monitor. Yeah, so like we've all been in that situation now where, you know, we didn't have any say in who our boss was, and then sometimes in who we've been hired to work with. So and I'm not saying it can't work. It has worked for me professionally over the years as a chef. When I was doing stuff, I didn't have any control over who my boss was going to be, and I was already in place. And pretty much people, owners and stuff like that, have said, "Hey, guess what? This is our guy. This is our chef. This is his team. I know we're hiring you to be the GM and control the restaurant, but this is it. And you guys got to learn to play nice in the sandbox." And most of the time it worked. Once or twice it didn't. And I get it, but my point being this, I don't care if it's not the traditional way of doing things. I don't, because the traditional way of doing things for the last 3 GMs and 6 coaches hasn't worked for this team. So if he's going to go out of the box and try something different, I'm going to give him leeway. I'm going to give Hilford leeway. I'm going to give whoever stepped in that job leeway, because guess what? I'm no better off. I'm no worse off than I am now. This team is going to get stripped down to bare bones probably in 6 weeks, and whoever's left is left. But I think that's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about when the building starts again. And if the people that are in place, maybe they might not have the PhDs or anything like that and nanotechnology and stuff like that. But if they have hockey sense and they have hockey smarts, like, when you hear Torts talked about Danny, he was very happy. He's a hockey guy. He knows his stuff. I enjoyed talking hockey with him. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing. If these guys know how to talk hockey to each other and they bounce stuff off each other, that's what you want. Because apparently in the Hexall regime, it was like him or nobody else. That's what you hear. And then Fletcher was on like an island playing with himself somewhere. He didn't even know what the hell was going on half the time. So to me, I, at this point, just give me something that may possibly work and let it ride for a little bit, and I'll roll with it for now. It cannot be any worse than what we've had.
Breaking news there. Chef Chuck Fletcher, Chef has a story. Chuck Fletcher pursuing onanistic pursuits there. So we'll file that one. Lance, okay, that granted, we've said our piece. Maybe if you have one little
I have a
last
little
word.
retort. Yeah, a little retort. I think my theory on that was just, Chef said somebody different, but is really Danny Briere, another ex-Flyers coming into the mix, that different of what we have done for so long? I don't know. I like Danny Briere. I think I've seen changes, even sitting in the press box. I've seen changes once he came in. Good changes, like having the head of player development, sitting up in the box with these guys and telling them to get off their phones and watch the game, and having these young guys come up from Lehigh when they're not playing and sit up there with them and go over the game with them. And they're sitting, a couple seats away from me. I've seen big changes like that since Danny Briere came in. I'm not saying I don't like Danny Briere. I just think it's a little much to give him a promotion like that. And the only thing I like more so, I think I was getting at with the other guy I mentioned, Eric Tulsky, is the fact that it's different. He's taking a new approach to it. He's using new statistics. It's not the same old dinosaurs like, the Bobby Clarks and the Paul Holmgrens and everything that was so much of the same thing. Today is a different hockey. You have to work. It's played totally different than it was 40 years ago when they played. And it is GMs are building teams in different because you have to hit on your draft picks. You have to make good contracts because of the cap hit. You can't just go out and sign everybody you want because there's a cap hit. And the Flyers haven't been really relevant in that sense since the cap was, set into place. So those guys with a new vision and understanding of that is refreshing in my mind. And, that's my only thing with Danny Briere. It's just another ex-Flyer coming in, and that's kind of scary with the years and years and years. And I don't even know about Scott Melleby in that sense, in my mind.
Well, yeah, that's what we're going on 40 years. I mean, he hasn't been involved with the Flyers in 30 years, 1990 or 1991. So, 30, there is an expiration date on that. I mean, same thing with Dave Poulin. I don't think Dave Poulin's a serious candidate, but he's a sharp guy. He's a sharp hockey guy. Yeah. And again, I question more the process, or maybe I should say equally, the process of how they're doing things as much as Danny Briere, as green as he is, and giving him that much responsibility. And a lot of it is dependent upon who they're going to hire. Can he really be a help to Danny Briere when he needs it? Or are they going to bring in other people, like I mentioned earlier, and Anthony DeMarco had mentioned Cami Granato as possibly someone who could be brought in along with the president of hockey operations? She actually has more operational experience than Danny Briere. So we'll just have to see it. Not a lot, but still. And she's had every job in hockey from every side. I really respect Cami Granato. I'll put it that way. And of course, she's married to Ray Ferraro, who's constantly evaluating players. And that's not a trifle. It's not a minor thing. So let's move along, because regardless, like we talked about earlier, Monday, May 8th, this coming Monday, is a draft lottery. It's going to determine a lot, like Chef talked about. Although, Chef, I would disagree. I don't know if the Flyers are not going to be stripped bare. They are not taking this thing down to the studs. They like a lot of players they have. The pursuit is really who among the veterans has to be taken away so they could take a swing at getting higher end talents. We're watching Jack Hughes tonight, and Svechnikov is hurt, or anybody like McDavid, Draisaitl, Eichel. I mean, one of these top players. The Flyers don't have any of those guys, and they don't have the prototypical first line center, first pair of defensemen. So and the draft is June 28th and 29th. And we just got to look at a lot of the kids that are going to be drafted coming up in this under 18 tournament that just occurred. Lance, fill us in, because frankly, I want to tell everybody honestly, I was moving and I was really tied up and really caught very little of the action for under 18. So we're kind of leaning on Lance and Chef here to fill in some of the blanks, because I don't want to BS anybody. Lance, what do you got for us there?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, prospects are my things, guys. I run my own prospect podcast, Prospect Watch as well, where I have a bunch of different guys come in and I interview them, and we go over the best of every position and all kinds of stuff. So in this tournament, I'm just going to say, USA won gold, Sweden won silver, and Canada won bronze. I think the standout who the Flyers, some names the Flyers could look at in the first round. There was a lot of them that played in this tournament. So Will Smith from Team USA was named MVP of the whole tournament. In this alone, he's a BC commit as well. So that's pretty nice considering who we got at BC right now and who Cutter said he's going to stay another year. So he had 9 goals, 11 assists, and 20 points in this tournament alone. Will Smith did. He's a great center. And, obviously the Flyers need a center. He's a plus 15 as well. Another big name for Team USA in this tournament was Ryan Leonard. And Ryan Leonard, to me, has made a big push in moving up the rankings, especially in this tournament. He is another BC commit. BC is going to be the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They're going to be a beast this next season, okay? He had 7 games played, 8 goals in 7 games, 9 assists, and 17 points. All right. And another guy I liked on Team USA was their goaltender. I wrote about him previously. I talked about him on Prospect Watch before. I think he's a guy the Flyers should look at late in the draft, maybe a 5th, 6th round guy. But Trey Augustine for Team USA, he had 6 wins. He had a .933 save percentage and a .161 goals against average in this tournament. All right. Then you go to Team Canada. Team Canada, a couple stars there. Macklin Celebrini. He is 16 years old, guys, but you have to think he is the next big thing. He's going to be in the 2024 draft. Okay. A BU commit. And he basically led all Canada. A 16-year-old was showing up these kids that are about to be drafted in my mind. So I think he is going to be that Connor Bednar type guy in 2024. He had 6 goals, 9 assists, and 15 points. He played for the Chicago Steel this year in the USHL. Another couple of guys who the Flyers could look at from Team Canada in this first pick, depending on where they go and what position they get in the draft lottery, is Callum Ritchie, a big center for Team Canada. I think he's going to go a little bit later than where the Flyers are going to pick, but another big center, 7 games played, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. One of my favorite players in this draft that played for Team Canada, Andrew Crystal. I really, really like him. I think he is going to be a star. He's a little bit, little smaller. He needs to, put on some weight, put on some muscle. But the things he was able to do in the WHL this year were amazing. He had only 2 goals and 4 assists for 6 points. He played down the lineup a bit. And I don't know why. I think he is a star talent. I think he's going to be a face of the franchise. He may take another year or so from these top 5 picks, but he's going to be right up there in the top 10 for sure. And a defenseman I like for Team Canada, if the Flyers get a 2nd round pick, is Etienne Morin from the Manhattan Wildcats. I'm going to have him hopefully on my show here coming up. But big guy, big defenseman, 6 foot, 183 pounds, big physical defenseman, a guy to keep a watch out for in the 2nd round. He is my favorite defender in this draft. Big physical guy, stands guys up at the blue line, puts them on their butts, can make a big outlet pass, and he can skate. And Slovakia, of course, had Dalibor Dvorsky. He's a guy who could be drafted there in the top 10 as well. A Slovakian guy, 6'1", 201 pounds already, big NHL frame.
Let me ask you, someone said he reminds them a little bit of Jake Voracek in the way he dangles and the way he sees the ice. Is that a good comparison? Or is there a more willing shooter?
I think he's more of a shooter, but he can play, that style that Voracek did as well. But I think he's more of a finisher than Jacob Voracek was. In this tournament for Slovakia, 7 games, 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points. All right. Definitely can score some goals there. I'll talk about one more player that the Flyers could draft in that top 10 range that played in this tournament, and he played for Czech, is Edward Sale. He's another guy I really like. I think is very underrated in this draft class. He played in 5 games. He had 4 goals, 2 assists for 6 points. All right. Those are just some guys from this tournament that you should have been watching. If you had it recorded, you can go back and check out those. So,
let me ask you a couple names. Now, I know Axel Sandin, Pelika, he was at the tournament. Was
sure.
Reinbacher at this tournament as well, or no?
I think he was, but Sandin definitely stood out more. He played in 7 games. He had 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points. He's an offensive defenseman. He's probably going to be the top defenseman taken from Sweden. People really, really like him, and he's got a lot of offensive skill. This guy can line up and take shootouts attempts at the end of the game and put them in the back of the net. So a lot of people like that style defenseman in the current NHL, but I think he needs to polish up on his defense a little bit more in my mind. I like David Reinbacher, like you said, a little bit more. He's got bigger size, 6'2", 187, and I much rather see that if the Flyers are going to go defense than the offensive side. I think we have that Travis Sanheim already. We have Cam York that can step up. I think we need more of a defensive defenseman like Moran, who I was talking about for Team Canada. If we could get him, if we could trade some of these guys like Chef was saying, and possibly get a second round pick or possibly even a late first, if need be, maybe we could jump up and get a Moran that's more of a physical but defensively sound as well.
Okay, I'm going to draw down a couple of these other names, but Chef, you
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question because and you see it, it's been popping up, especially now with the whole Fedotov thing. So Mishkov, Mishkinov, all right. You think has his stock dropped?
Yes.
Now because after this, and if he's around there, are teams like going to go? Especially the Flyers now. They got a history of losing a player to Russia. Is that like make him like he's poison right now that they don't. You think they're afraid to go in that direction because they don't want to get burned again? Is that because if you're going to take this if in my opinion they don't get the first 2, they're going to be somewhere 7, 8, or 9, correct? And he could possibly drop to there. I don't know if I have the guts to take my 1 first-round pick at this point and waste it on a chance of somebody might not be able to play here, because if you read to some of the stuff I've read on Fedotov is he's never going to leave there. He's going to play for the rest of his career for that team, and that's it. It's done. So,
well, you got to think about the Flyers too. In Russia, what happened with the bullies back in the day. They still remember that. All right. The Flyers are not well liked, and the Ovechkins going to Washington and stuff like that. And Washington drafted an amazing, one of my favorite players from last year. They were able to draft him late in the first round because he did drop just because of that thing with the war going on and all this. And to me, I don't think the Flyers touch another Russian player, maybe late in the draft, but definitely not this high. You heard Danny Briere come out and say already, they need to hit on these picks.
Yeah.
And for me, Mishkov is a talent, but he's 5'10". He's only 148 pounds right now. And he is signed currently with his team in Russia to the year 25, 26. And that's, at 26, 27 is the first year you could potentially get this guy. I don't want to take a guy that could at that high of a pick that first off, you don't know if he wants to come over because he's Russian or if they're going to let him come over to the Flyers. And then you're not going to even see him have him in development camp for 2 or 3 seasons because Russia starts their season way before the NHL does. So if it were me, no way in heck am I picking him. I think there's some teams out there more suited for a player like that and that have the ability to wait in a sense because or take him because they have multiple first-round picks like Chicago, and some of these teams have been stockpiling these picks. They'll take a chance on a guy like that if he falls and snatch him up and sit him aside for a couple of years because they know they have, right? Unless it's the Capitals, then they'll pick him or move up for a guy because they have such great success with Russian players. But, to me, I think he's a little small.
I have 170 pounds, talented. By the way, not 148. So you might want to check that.
You don't. It's 159 in places. I've seen them 147. It depends what website you go to.
And it's Russian. Could be disinformation.
And it's Russian. They could be
kilograms.
Up, right. He could be weighed with bricks in his pockets. Who knows? But I think he's a little light. I think he's a little small. I think that the Flyers need to get a little power down the center with that first pick, or go exponential talent that could play within a year or two. And this guy you're not going to see. I don't want to turn him into that Kiprusoff or whatever from Minnesota.
Kaprizov.
Kaprizov. I'm sorry, Kaprizov. He was drafted and didn't come over for a number of years afterwards, and I think that's something like he's gonna end up doing with the war going on and all.
Okay, that's interesting. Let me let's drill down a couple players. Sure. That may or may not have been at the tournament. Obviously, Zach Benson's in the WHL right now.
Right.
And, hopefully
in the playoffs.
Right. It's a very good team, and they might be going for a Memorial Cup. He's a smallish guy, but he's a center, very shifty, good all-around skill. He was not there. So if he's there and you have Will Smith, Dvorsky, Oliver Moore, Ryan Leonard. Let's just worry about the forwards for now. Sure. And maybe Cristal. And in that group, if that's where the Flyers are picking at 7, 8, or 9, I'm not going to ask you to rank them, but maybe the one or two that you like more than the others.
I really, really like Cristal. If you watch tape on him, he is dominant. He is the pretty much only player on that team. You look at Zach Benson, Zach Benson's on a tremendous, tremendous team. And I think his stats are a little padded because of that. You look at Zach Benson's there, Matthew Savoy's there, Connor McLennan's still there, who scored 46 goals this year, but we didn't bother signing him. Connor Granke's there. Carson Lambos is there. You have a lot of names on that Winnipeg team that really helped him. And guys like Andrew Cristal didn't have guys like that to play with. He just went through 3 or 4 different players and did it all himself because he had to. But I really like Will Smith. I think, if he's there, I would take him. The Flyers need a center. We're not sure about Kevin Hayes. We're trying to deal with him. He doesn't really want to be here, I don't think, at this point. You're uncertain about Sean Couturier.
Let me see. Yeah, that's definitely true there. And they're going to definitely try to get rid of Kevin Hayes. That's like a fait accompli. Whether they can pull it or not, we'll see. Like Shep was talking about, that would be definitely one of the big moves. Does Will Smith leave you wanting more sometimes when you watch him and you're like, what's and then all of a sudden, I was listening to Russ Cohen, he was like, yeah, you might think he's not really doing much out there, but by the end of the game, he's got a goal and 2 assists. I mean, but he's
another guy. He's another guy for me that benefits from playing for Team USA, right? Team USA he's playing with Ryan Leonard, who's an elite goal scorer in my mind. He can put the puck in the back of the net. And I think he makes, him look very, very well. Oliver Moore's there as well from Team USA. He's playing on a lesser line and still putting up similar point totals to what Will Smith did. I believe, Will Smith does a lot. He does a lot of little things that you don't see, which I think you were getting at. But in my mind, if I'm taking this person where the Flyers are taking him, I want a face of the franchise guy. I think we need that. And for me, I think Ryan Leonard's up there in my mind. He can score goals, but I think you have a similar person in Cutter Gauthier. but I like Andrew Crystal. He is my guy. I would say watch tape on this guy. He is very, very underrated, even though most people have him inside the top 10. He's my guy I would go with.
Okay. Now, if the Flyers walk up to a podium and say they're at number 7,
right,
and they take David Reinbacher, or they how close is he to a guy like Jiricek in terms of like the profile? Are they similar players? Where, because Jiricek, it looks like he's going to be a really, really good first pairing defenseman.
I like him. He's got a great outlet pass. That's what I really know about him. He can move the puck really well. He sees guys in motion, and that is exciting to watch from David. He's big. I like that. He's got some size to him. But I say that's about the extent of like, what I get excited about him for. He can
not super dynamic though.
Not overly dramatic, dramatic there with anything. He settles the puck down nicely. He gets it out to people. If you have talent on the wings, they're going to be off to the races with a guy like that. And, that's great. But I think if you want more of an offensive defenseman, if they went that route, that Axel Pellica, yeah, I think he's there. But I'm telling you, I would go offense in this first round. That's what I would do. There's tons and tons of great offensive talent there. And I think if you were able to slip in and move up like the Flyers say they want to, I really think you go with Moran from the Manhattan, from the QM JHL. With a second pick, if you can score that or move up in the draft, like Danny's saying, he wants to be aggressive and move up some. So I think you get that kind of defenseman. I think you have too many offensive defensemen. And David is just a safe pick. I think he's going to be a good top 4 defenseman in the NHL. I don't think he's going to be flashy offensively or defensively. I think he's just going to be a guy you can feel comfortable with having out on the ice, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, that makes
not
sense.
Have to worry about, yeah,
no, a safe pick, but not necessarily what they're looking for. So
I have a quick question. Yeah, I have a quick question. You're talking about Will Smith there. There were comparisons. I know it sounds like you were saying he might not look like he's doing anything, and all of a sudden he's got a goal and two assists or whatever. I think the great Dan Silver has compared him to almost like a Kevin Hayes type player. Now, knowing what we know is out of the guys you had mentioned, and I'll see if you agree with me, I feel like maybe Leonard is probably the one that fits both, fits with the whole scheme if we're going to keep this coach going forward towards. I think he's more – I don't see Will Smith as a Tortorella kind of player. I think, I'm not saying he takes off shifts like Kevin Hayes did. I just think that there's certain players that we have seen that are towards gravitated. Now, how many, if they are going to go big on this first pick here, and it's not 1 or 2, and you're going down and Danny has to trade up, who do you see as the most Tort-like player that out of that group that you had mentioned that they would take that risk on? Because if they were going to move forward, he's going to probably play maybe later in the season or early, expected to make the team next year probably.
Well, if you wanted to get a guy who could be ready earlier, like you're saying, I think a Leo Carlson is a big body, 6'3", 194. He plays over in the top league in Sweden. Already, at a very young age. And, he could possibly come over within a year's timeline if you're looking to get a guy who could do that. I think he could play, within towards his system if you wanted to say you were going to move up. Not to put down Will Smith at all, because, I mean, he scored 51 goals this year when the United States Development Program was playing like college teams. And going around the collegiate ranks, and he scored 127 points in that realm. And then this season alone, playing the USHL teams, he played 20 games and he had 42 points in that. So he can score. He can definitely score. But Like I said, I don't know how much goes into Ryan Leonard being on the same line as him, who also scored 51 goals against college teams and everything this year when they were playing. So I think Edward Sale is another guy who could be scary good very quick because he plays over in the top Czech leagues against men, against 30-year-olds, and all that as well. I think he is a guy that's very, very underrated in a sense, and he's 6'1" and got an NHL build already too. So if you're looking for a guy that's going to be possibly an earlier introduction in here to get a kickstart in this rebuild, those are two guys that I could see. My ideal pick, like I said, would be Andrew Crystal, but any of those guys, I really wouldn't be displeased at all if you were able to bring those guys in. I just a little leery about the centers in that sense, because I don't want to get a center just because we need a center in this sense. I think you should draft best available player if you're getting a guy, this high up in the draft. And, I don't know if that would be, Will Smith in a sense, even though he was, the MVP of the tournament that just happened. So any of the one of those picks would be great.
Carlson's like in the upper echelon. He's in the top 5,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, he's
so
in the top
we have the
30 in most
opportunity.
people's draft, yeah,
that's an automatic. If you have the opportunity to get Carlson, if for some reason he fell to us at 7, I don't think they're going to be able to move up in this draft. Like maybe if they could, if they traded a player, they could maybe get a Provorov and get like a 28th pick or something like that.
Right. And that's where I said that Moran, defensive pick would come in or something like that. But I don't think they're going to move past whatever they get, 6th, 7th, whatever they get in the draft lottery. No.
Yeah, I'm total agreement. I think they should just pick the best player available. Mm-hmm. When you're rebuilding, who cares about a need? I mean, obviously, if it's a bad even, you're going to sway toward the need. I get it, but if they're going to tear through this roster just a little bit, then I have no problem with that. And Shep, that brings me to the next question. Looking at the roster, because we're going to over the next. I guess several weeks after we find out what the pick is on the O&B Puckcast, I'm sure Lance, you and Steele on the show, once we find out what that is, you're going to have a series of people, including yourself, who have opinions about who that should be. Some of the junior tournaments will be winding up and the final rankings will be released. Some have already been released. So we'll get deeper into that. But you look at the Flyers roster and you think about maybe 4 or 5 players that the Flyers are going to move. But I want to concentrate. Knowing Kevin Hayes, it's like they're going to have to eat salary and make some kind of deal. They're not going to get a lot back. Okay. But who on this roster is worth trading for a young player who's just about to break, as we've seen with what's his name in Buffalo, Tage Thompson. So
yes, big guy.
Nobody expected him to take off like he did there, but
he was almost on the outs there like a year or so ago. They were thinking about trading him.
I know.
His name was on the rumor mill, and I spoke up about that, saying, "Hey, this guy's pretty darn good, and you need to be watching this guy." And look what he did this season when he gets a couple of players around him.
Well, that's why LA probably wants to hang on to Byfield. I mean, I'd love to have Byfield because a big guy like that, it's just the light doesn't go on right away a lot of times, and that's why I thought a Provorov deal that would include whatever to get Byfield out of there, because you get maybe, I don't know. I mean, those are the kind of deals. So what kind of players? You got players like TK, Carter Hart, Provorov, who's not coming off a great year. I mean, those are the kind of players that, or maybe even Scott Lawton in combination with one of those guys, could bring you something like a first-round pick later as it may be, or bring like a young player, if not Byfield, somebody like a Turcotte or something. So the Flyers can get young talent and take a swing at guys with a very high ceiling, even if they haven't realized it yet, or that first-round draft pick who could end up maybe, if they're really lucky, like a Pasternak, who was taken much later than a lot of people thought. Obviously, right. He's fantastic. So who on that Flyers roster, Chef, do you think has that potential?
I just think it would have to be now. Obviously, they're going to find a way to get rid of Hayes, and there's an interesting article I think by Anthony DeMarco about how to get rid of Ryan Ellis's contract that I thought was very fascinating. I could totally see that, but also too, if you look down the roster, what's really going to get you a first? And I only see Carter Hart or TK that's going to get you a first back. I mean, if the Flyers are coming for me for a trade, and I know that they want my first round pick, guess what? I want Carter Hart. I want TK or some variation. I don't think any variation that have Scott Lawton in there is going to get you a first round pick. I love the guy. I think he's like probably the heart of this team right now. But
yeah, Lawton's a trade deadline first round pick. He's not going to get it to you now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe. I just don't. I don't see anything down on this roster that screams that. Now I see a lot of secondary pieces on this team, and I like I'm liking what I saw out of Tippett this year. I like what I saw out of the last 15, 20 games from Farabee. It seemed like he got his strength back. I liked what I saw out of Noah Cates. I extremely liked everything I saw out of Noah Cates. But what else is there to get excited about? There isn't. I mean, that's what I mean. You got a chance. You can butcher this team if you had to, and just like you want to leave room on the cap. You're definitely got a chance here. So, I mean, if you're looking for what I said earlier in the season, and I kind of got laughed at for it, was Rasmus Ristolainen's deal is going to look pretty good next year and the following after the cap. And what did he do? He basically changed his whole game around in one season to probably being one of the most consistent players on their defense towards the end there. And I thought he played very well. I think that's what you get in the Torts coach. Now, if you're trying to pick up somebody out there that's going to be like what we got out of Tippett, somebody who was on a border needed a fresh new start, I'm sure you could probably trade a Provorov or maybe even, D'Angelo is going to get you something at the trade deadline next year. But like Sanheim's contract is too tough now, so I don't see that aging well at all. If he was 5.5, it would have been a different story, but not 6. So it changed. So, but yeah, so I don't see much that you're going to be able to do to get a first round. I think you're asking too much, unless you package multiple people and only thing you're getting back is a pick and you're holding salary. I don't see how it works.
Okay, this is Danny's job is to try and make lemonade out of these lemons. Lance, what kind of vision do you have with regard to that question about players that could clear cap, but also not just because you could do that, you could down the whole roster. Well, this guy will get you that, but actual tangible value for the Flyers.
Well, tangible value for the Flyers. I don't think they're going to move Kevin Hayes. He's got 4 years remaining, $7+ million. I don't think they're going to move Risto. He's got 5. It's not a horrible contract, but he is still a minus 120 something for his career. It's a team stat, whatever, but it's still horrible stat. And he's got a lot of years. Sanheim's got a 9-year deal, getting paid way too much. You're not going to move that. What you can move is Ivan Provorov. He's got 3 years remaining. He's still only 26 years old. He is not a number 1 defenseman. He is not. He's a great number 2 guy. And certain teams, I wrote an article about this before in reference to the LA Kings, need a guy like that. They have a wealth of right-hand shot defenders, all right? They need somebody to play with them. And they need a left-hand shot. And that would not only get rid of salary in Provorov, but it would allow, our own defenseman in that sense, in Cam York, to be able to play his side instead of playing offside. He would be able to move up and play top-line minutes, be that defenseman that they drafted him to be, and have Sanheim be, behind him in that sense. But, I think you're not going to get a first-round pick for him. I think what you need to go after is prospects, and ready prospects, like you said. I don't think you're going to get Byfield. I don't think you're going to get Byfield for that. And I think there's better prospects in a sense that you could get multiple ones to package deal. Like a Gabe Valerdi. You're looking at like guys like Ramus Capria, Alex
Rasmus
Turcotte.
Kupari.
Yep. Alex Turcotte.
I'm good with the names.
Yep, I'm not. Alex Turcotte's there. He's a guy that was drafted really high.
He's been hurt a lot. That's the only issue with him. He can't stay healthy.
Right. So he might be that other player that you throw in that could be something. You know what I mean? And then you go down and you look at a guy like Sam Fegamo, good player there that's still not really up, or Arthur Kavalev. He's he's coming into his own, right? And then
notice that we're concentrating on the Kings here, right?
Right, the Kings. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a package deal that I think could work for the Kings because they've already rumored to like him. They need a left-hand shot defenseman that could play top line minutes, and they have a wealth of right-hand shot defensemen. In my mind, the guy I'd go after is Braden Clark, defensive prospect.
He's not going anywhere. They're not trading him. I know.
I would ask for that, but then you settle for a guy like Jordan Spence or Helge Grans, and that those prospects may be more doable there in a sense. And both of those are right-hand shot defensemen as well. Helge's got some great size to him, and Jordan Spence is an overall great defender as well. So I think you ask for the stars, you know what I mean, and Braden Clark, and then settle for multiple other players and go that route. But I think that's a feasible, workable trade that even Danny Briere could possibly pull off in a sense, because Provorov is so coveted. In a sense, he's still young. He's signed to a halfway decent deal, and he wouldn't have to be the guy anymore. I think he needs to get out of Philly. I think he needs a fresh start. So.
Well, I don't doubt that. Chef at Winnipeg is going to make a lot of changes after the lackluster effort they gave in the playoffs. And they're another team that has been rumored to be in and to be enamored with Ivan Provorov. And they want to take a little bit of heat off of Josh Morrissey. And they have a left-hander in Nate Schmidt, who's 31. He's not someone I'm interested per se, but that's the kind of contract that the Flyers might take if they would be willing to part with some of their other players. There's going to be changes there, and they're not quite ready to flip this thing over yet, from what I understand. But I could be wrong. That's another location. But I mean, you have players like Kyle Connor, just fantastic player,
amazing.
But but then you have a player like Scheifele, who supposedly has an attitude problem. And of course, everybody's talking about Blake Wheeler, who was 36. He's making $8.2 million. I don't know if they're the greatest partner, but thought I'd throw that up for you.
I expected them to do a lot better in the playoffs than they did. I know they had a lot of injuries going into at the end of the season, going into the playoffs, but still, they kind of like rolled over and showed you their belly and just wanted to get pet like a dog. It seemed like, but overall, I mean, look, I'm not upset about what the kind of return is this year so much. I'm more concerned about how much we can get the roster turned over. If you have to like take somebody's big contract, like you were saying, to clear and move a space, and like I know he said, he thinks that Lance thinks that Kevin Hayes isn't movable. I beg to differ. I think he can be moved. You might eat something there, or whatever's going on.
Yeah,
but
$2.5 million. Yeah.
You're going to have to eat it, but. It depends. Is it better for you in the long run? If you're not worried about what it's going to be this year, and sounded like what Torch said and what Danny both said, we're it's going to hurt more and a little bit more each year, but then all of a sudden we're going to be a team again. I just think that's your goal, is to kind of make those moves to where you're not going to get out of cap hell in one off season, but you got to set yourself to be out of cap hell when your younger players are maturing, and you can embrace the people that are the free agents that you should be attracting at that point by turning it around. I think, people say they don't want to play for Philly. I don't know if that's necessarily true. They didn't want to play for what was here before. You had Debbie Downers in the locker room that never, so we'll see what happens in the future. But I think you need to set yourself up for what this team is going to look like in 2 years, and that's your starting point. And that's the most important thing. And if you have to eat a big contract for 2 years, then all of a sudden you got $25-30 million going into an off season, and your young kids are hitting, and they're getting, I think that's what you have to eventually plan for.
Right. I mean, if you're going to exchange a contract that only lasts a couple of years, like somebody, and I forget, it was on Jason Martinez's show about taking on Tyler Myers from Vancouver and trading another contract out there.
Like Ellis, wasn't that he was talking about Ryan Ellis'
I think that was
contract?
Ellis. Although I don't see Vancouver doing that, because they already have Pettersson and Quinn Hughes, and I don't know if Besser's part of that core, but they have a couple of really good players that you can build on, and that's something the Flyers don't have. They're the exact opposite. The Flyers have all the depth players they need. They have, the bottom three defensemen. They have the bottom six forwards. They just got to get stars. So. By the way, Cole Perfetti is another player in Winnipeg who's a young center who has a Morgan Frost type of skill set, might actually be a little bit better in terms of ceiling. So that's just a name you might want to look for. He's in Winnipeg. That could be something for Provorov. I'm not really sure. It depends what Kevin Cheveldayoff is going to do in terms of how quickly they want to turn this thing over, whether they're willing or ready to do a retool, rebuild, whatever. But gents, let's wrap it up for tonight, because the playoffs are here, and Florida probably pulled the biggest upset for my money with Boston. Boston with a season, and it's really funny. I think Boston was up 3-1 the series, and again during my move, I didn't catch all the action as much as I would have. But I'll tell you what, those last couple of games, Lance, it seemed like the Bruins were really gripping their sticks super tight.
Yeah, they were almost trying too hard to get back into it, and a team like Florida is proving how scary they can be. They have changed themselves and over the course of a couple of years, where they were a team that just wanted a bunch of veteran players to come in, much like the Flyers, and make it work, try to make it work, and push it, and then they got some new ways of thinking and some new people, new blood in the, management roles. And they were able to get the prospects, start hitting on the draft, make some logical trades, and go about it that way. So, I think, they brought in some veterans and kept some veterans like a Ratko Gudas, who is a hit leader every single year in the NHL, to do those key point things that, you need a guy that can hit and take guys off the puck. He can do that. You need these key point players, and they fill those positions very nicely. You need guys to play roles, but you don't need, like you said, you don't need a whole team full of role players. They have top end talent, they have star players, and they have role players that shut down those key players that Boston that had rolling all year.
Yeah, but don't bury the lead, Matt Tkachuk, man. I mean,
right.
geez.
I mean,
that guy was.
That was a star player they brought in. They went out and knew who they wanted and brought in that guy who, essentially proved to be the right pick. Everybody was looking at, Johnny Hockey and what he do in Columbus. They're picking worse than us, right?
Yeah.
He didn't go down there and change the face of that team. He was just another guy, that could score some goals, but he was just another guy. And Tkachuk came into Florida and really took over and it made it his team. And that's what you want to see. And that's what, Flyers fans are just used to mediocrity at this point. And we were left to get excited about guys like Noah Cates, who was a great player in a sense, great defensive player, can shut the other team's players down. But in a sense, like you said, he's a role player. He's not a top line center. He will never be a top line center. If you want to be a winning organization, he's more of a third line center in a sense. And we have a bunch of those players, too many of those players in a sense. We need stars. We need to make big moves, like Chef said, get rid of guys who may hurt for a little bit, getting rid of them, but it's for the greater good. It's for the future, building the team back the way it should be built.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm going to, I was just going to say with these playoffs, since both of my picks, because I picked the Rangers to beat Colorado before both of them are out. I mean, Seattle's looks like the Vegas Golden Knights did a couple of years ago, like a machine, and nobody really stands out. I mean, Jared McCann's out, so he's not. They don't really have a big star there. Although I think Matty Beniers is building toward that, hopefully from their perspective. Yeah, I mean, Florida's already beaten Toronto in the first game, and as we record this, the Devils have dropped their first game in Carolina, and then we have Seattle and the Stars. Seattle shocking. Joe Pavelski, 4 goals, unbelievable. And then, of course, right now as we speak, we have Edmonton and the Vegas Golden Knights. So, Chef, it's yours.
Yeah, I wanted to say, since you brought up the Kraken, I think a lot of people were surprised that the Abs go down so easily. Not easily by a expansion team. I think my ego. How long we've been doing this, Isaiah? Now several years now.
In our 7th year now, yeah.
Yeah, 7th season, and we're pushing what show is this? Show number 184. We're pushing 200 shows here. My ego can't take Dave Hackstall making the playoffs in the first year of an expansion team, let alone knocking out the defending Cup champions. I mean,
that's okay. It's year 2. It's year 2.
Yeah.
Is
it year 2? Is it year 2? All right. Yeah, but still, it's. Oh my God, my brain is hurting. The only thing I'm happy about.
He made all the mistakes in Philly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he gets it out. Of course.
Coaches develop just like players. No big deal. Everybody's making Hackstall this.
Well, at least.
And then that's somebody else said, Hackstall was always brilliant. No, he wasn't. And I gave specific exames. No, it's just that's the way it works out. But
that's true. So I'm just happy I still have the Canes winning the Cup, and they were supposed to beat the Avalanche, but at least I still got my winner in there. So I'll take it.
Hopefully they can get healthy. Yeah, hopefully the Canes can get healthy. I like them, but if we're gonna go on Seattle, I like that core. If you look at how they build that team, the draft, there were so many guys. They got so much criticism from the initial draft when they were assembling their team. They didn't take a lot of guys trash, like a lot of other teams trash. They didn't take. They kept a lot of cap space. They took a lot of draft picks to not draft certain players from certain teams. And they went out and brought in guys over time, like Jordan Eberle. They brought in who I like, Adam Larson, and brought him in. And I mean, he was a great. I thought the Flyers. I was really hoping the Flyers would have brought him in to be that kind of veteran presence, and they didn't. So they made some great picks like that in free agency and stuff, and they're hitting on their draft picks now too. So I mean, Ron Francis is bringing that little bit of Carolina to out west there, and it seems to be working rather good. So
they did a lot of analytically based stuff.
Yep,
and that one of the other candidates for
GM of the year.
The GM. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The thing was, it took so long in Carolina for it to unwind. Mm-hmm. And I think he had disagreements. I think he was ready for go time a little sooner, and they got a little tight-fisted, so it didn't work out. And then, of course, they have Don Waddell, who more or less since listening to Tulsky at this point,
Yeah,
right?
he's a figurehead at this point. Yeah, he's a figurehead at this point. Tulsky's running that team. But Seattle's also got guys like Tolvanen and stuff that they brought in as depth guys from Nashville and stuff.
Tolvanen, it's just one-dimensional player. They found a way to get him in the right spot to take advantage of that dimension. So
Nashville couldn't do it. He was a natural goal scorer, and Nashville just couldn't do it and let him go. And look what he's doing out in Seattle now. So
so I would not be surprised if, based on what I've seen, I'm not really sure. I'm never confident in Edmonton's goaltending.
No.
So I think Vegas has I heard Mark Stone could be injured, so that's a big, big deal. We'll see what's going on there. I think Vegas has a better overall squad, but again, with the goaltending, I'm not sure about their goaltending. And so of all the teams I've seen so far out west, Seattle looked like the best team out west. And in the East, I don't know about Bob, and I feel probably better about Carolina. It could be Carolina and Seattle. Boy, that would be a nightmare for the league, though, because they're not going to get any ratings on that one, even though it's probably going to be great hockey.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could totally see that. Could you imagine what the West Coast final being Seattle versus the Golden Knights? It's like, oh God, two teams. It's like Back to the Future too. When he looks up, he goes, Florida wins World Series. Yeah, should have been on the Cubbies. That kind of thing. It's not what you were expecting to see at the beginning of the season, or even halfway through the season, that the Western Conference final would be those two. But you know what? The best product for hockey is the best series. And whether or not they're big markets anymore, I think they've survived that over the years. And I think if they continue, these hot playoffs continue to entertain, people keep talking about them. I mean, look, we're burying the lead. Nobody's even brought it up tonight. If you can get Snoop Dogg to be interested in the Ottawa Senators, come on, that's I think is the most incredible thing, is where you're expanding your markets for everywhere. And over the years, just in 3-4 years ago, where the NHL has been and what they're doing moving forward, they have the best playoffs. And if they could just market that just a hair better, I think it won't matter what market is in for the Cup. I just think that people just want to see great hockey, and I watch no matter what. So it doesn't matter what market is to me.
Well, you're a diehard, but can you ever get out of that situation where you're a niche sport? We'll see if there's any B's and H's in Ottawa with Snoop Dogg. But we're going to wrap it up there. And Lance, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to give some final thoughts and some contact information where people can catch you on social media.
Yeah, I think a final thought to wrap this last little segment up is you hit on those teams like you just said. You look at Carolina, you look at the guys we just talked about out west in the Golden Knights and Seattle and a team like New Jersey even. A lot of those guys built the same way. They have some youth. They're hitting on draft picks. They brought in a lot of type B free agents, filled the roster with role players that fit a certain need and
style too.
And style, and they're winning. New Jersey snapped back from being bottom dwellers to finally taking it to be playoff contenders again, right? And they haven't done that since Brodeur was in that. But they finally got some, great young players like a Ryan Graves on defense that I think is outstanding pickup. That's very underrated for the Devils, and they were able to pick certain players like that and really develop back into be a playoff contender very easily. So I think the Flyers can do it. It might take a year or two of great draft picks like these teams have had, but they can do it. And, thank you guys again for having me on. I appreciate it. If you guys out there and, listening, and you want to follow me more, all my articles are on steelflyers.com. You can also catch them, and all my podcasts, both the Hockey Writers Inc. of Flyers podcast, and my other Prospect Watch podcast that's doing very well now, where I bring on a bunch of great young talent that I see, in developing to be great NHL players one day. Both are on YouTube. You can go out at any audio platform where you can find podcasting, and they're on all that. All you got to do is type in Hockey Writers Inc. or the Prospect Watch, and they're there. So check me out on Twitter as well at Lance Green 39. I appreciate it, guys.
Fantastic, Lance. Thanks again for coming on.
No problem.
And for that expertise on these prospects. All right, man. We'll catch you down the road. You take care.
All right. Appreciate it, guys.
All righty. Okay. Well, Chef, Lance was kind enough to come on and elucidate on some of these players and give us his thoughts.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I liked what he said about the prospects. There'll be a decent amount to choose from. I think they're going to get somebody decent at 7, 8, or 9, even if they do end up picking there. I believe that they will get 1 or 2, but who knows? But at least it's some consolation that there's something available. It might not be the player that's going to change the whole world around, but it'll hopefully be somebody decent. So,
yeah, I mean, we're dying to get that top player, and we're hoping that by some chance in that 13% range that the Flyers can get that player. I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's 80% chance though that'll be 7 or 8. So 7% chance that'll be number 9. So I guess that's it. Where can people catch you on social media?
You can get me at Chef to the left B, Chef the number 2 left B, and I will gladly debate any kind of nastiness that you want to throw toward me from this past show, because I know a lot of my opinions are kind of like off the wall, but they are my own, and I stand by them.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you got the Canes. I'm left with holding the bag with the Rangers and the Avalanche. So there you go. So much for my opinion. And you can follow me at Isaiah, ISAIAH _520. Isaiah, don't forget the _520. And of course, you can follow the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck on Twitter, and on Getter at O&B Puckcast, at O&B Puckcast. Next week, Chef, and I'm hoping Dan can make it.
Yeah.
Great Dan Silver. We're going to have Steve Corianos, the draft analyst.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be Wednesday night, and he's fantastic. He knows these kids, and also, a lot of it's done by video now anyway, by most of the the scribes that follow these players. But it should be very interesting once we know where the Flyers are picking. We'll be able to really drill down and hone in on who's going to be in that range. So until next time, we'll be back with the draft analyst, Steve Corianos. Take care, everybody.